Surigao Coast, the ancient gold coast of Mindanao. Long before the Spanish galleons sailed into Philippine waters, before Manila became the Pearl of the Orient, there existed a thriving civilization along the northeastern shores of Mindanao, a place where gold flowed as freely as the rivers, where master craftsmen created treasures that would astound the world, and where powerful chieftains ruled over prosperous communities. This is the story of the Surigao Coast, the ancient gold coast of Mindanao. Today, when we think of Philippine gold, we might imagine the glittering treasures of the National Museum or the legendary Yamashita gold. But the true golden legacy of the Philippines lies not in myths or modern vaults, but buried in the archaeological record of Surigao, a legacy that speaks of indigenous genius, extensive trade networks, and a sophisticated pre-colonial society that many Filipinos have never learned about. The discovery, our story begins in the 1960s and 70s, when archaeologists and treasure hunters alike began uncovering extraordinary golden artifacts along the Surigao coast and the Agusan River Valley. Unlike the random finds of Spanish-era treasures, these discoveries revealed something far more significant: evidence of a highly developed goldsmithing tradition that dated back over 1,000 years. The most famous discovery came in 1917, but wasn't fully appreciated until decades later: the Agusan image, a golden Hindu-Buddhist deity weighing nearly 4 pounds. For years, it was dismissed as a curiosity or even a hoax. But scientific analysis eventually confirmed its authenticity and antiquity, proving that sophisticated metallurgical work was being done in Mindanao as early as the 13th or 14th century. But the Agusan image was just the beginning. Throughout the 20th century, farmers plowing fields, fishermen along riverbanks, and systematic archaeological excavations uncovered thousands of gold artifacts, intricate jewelry, ceremonial masks, ornate belts, beads, and death masks that showcased remarkable artistry and technical skill. Please help me reach 500 likes, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing historical stories. The goldsmithing tradition. What made Surigao the Gold Coast? The answer lies in a perfect combination of natural resources, geographical advantage, and human ingenuity. First, the geology. Mindanao, particularly the Surigao and Agusan regions, is naturally rich in gold deposits. Ancient Filipinos didn't mine deep underground like modern operations. Instead, they practiced placer mining, panning for gold in rivers and streams where erosion had already done the work of separating gold from rock. The Agusan River and its tributaries carried gold dust and nuggets down from the mineral-rich mountains, making it relatively accessible to skilled workers. But having gold is one thing, working it is another entirely. The goldsmiths of ancient Surigao were masters of techniques that rivaled any in Southeast Asia. They practiced granulation, the art of attaching tiny gold spheres to create textured surfaces. They used filigree techniques to create delicate wirework patterns. They understood repoussé, hammering gold from the reverse side to create raised designs, and most impressively, they mastered the lost wax casting method, allowing them to create complex three-dimensional figures with remarkable precision. These weren't primitive craftsmen experimenting with soft metal. These were specialists, likely working in hereditary guilds, passing down techniques through generations. Chemical analysis of the gold artifacts shows they often used a natural alloy of gold, silver, and copper that produced a distinctive reddish hue. The purity and consistency of this work suggests quality control and standardized production, hallmarks of an organized industry, not casual craft. Trade and connections. The golden treasures of Surigao tell us something even more remarkable than technical skill. They reveal that ancient Mindanao was connected to a vast maritime trade network that stretched across Southeast Asia to China, India, and beyond. The Agusan image itself is evidence of this connection. Its iconography is clearly Hindu-Buddhist, showing influence from the great empires of Java and Sumatra. But it wasn't simply imported. It was created locally, showing that ideas and artistic traditions traveled along with goods. Chinese trade ceramics found in the same archaeological sites as gold artifacts confirm regular contact with Chinese merchants from the Song and Ming dynasties. Arabic and Sanskrit loanwords in early Philippine languages suggest contact with Indian and Islamic traders. The gold itself may have been exported. Early Spanish chronicles mention that when they arrived, Filipinos had extensive gold trade networks throughout the archipelago. What emerges is a picture radically different from the primitive, isolated communities that colonial narratives often portrayed. Ancient Surigao was cosmopolitan, outward-looking, and economically sophisticated. Chiefs who wore golden death masks and ornate jewelry weren't rustic tribal leaders. They were powerful figures in regional trade networks, accumulating wealth through commerce and craftsmanship. Society and culture. The abundance and artistry of gold artifacts also reveal much about the social structure of ancient Surigao communities. Gold wasn't just currency or decoration. It was a marker of power, status, and spiritual significance. The elaborate gold death masks found in burial sites weren't for everyday wear. They were reserved for high-status individuals, perhaps chieftains or religious leaders. These masks, placed over the faces of the deceased, suggest beliefs about the afterlife and the importance of honoring the dead with precious materials. The sheer variety of gold ornaments, earrings, necklaces, bracelets, anklets, belts, and rings indicates a stratified society where appearance communicated rank. Spanish chroniclers who arrived in the 16th century noted that Filipino chiefs and nobles adorned themselves with gold, while commoners wore less or none. This wasn't vanity. It was a visible social hierarchy. Women, interestingly, appear prominently in the archaeological record. Many gold ornaments are sized and styled for women, and some early accounts describe powerful female leaders and wealthy noblewomen. Gold wasn't exclusively a male privilege. It crossed gender lines in ways that suggest women could hold significant status and wealth. Religious and spiritual life also centered on gold. Gold ornaments depicting deities, animals, and geometric patterns suggest a complex belief system that blended animism with Hindu-Buddhist influences. Gold's incorruptibility, it doesn't tarnish or decay, made it symbolically perfect for representing the eternal, the divine, the sacred. The colonial disruption. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, they found what they'd been seeking: gold. But they fundamentally misunderstood what they'd discovered. They saw primitive natives with gold and assumed easy plunder. They didn't recognize the sophisticated civilization that had created it. Spanish colonial policies disrupted the gold trade networks. Forced labor in mines replaced traditional placer mining. The encomienda system extracted wealth without understanding or preserving indigenous knowledge. Christian conversion campaigns suppressed traditional beliefs. and with them, the cultural context that had given gold its sacred meaning. The goldsmithing tradition didn't disappear overnight, but it declined dramatically. Master craftsmen died without apprentices. Techniques were forgotten. The networks that had sustained trade collapsed under colonial control. Within a few generations, the golden age of Surigao became a fading memory, then a forgotten history. Modern rediscovery and significance. The National Museum of the Philippines houses an extraordinary collection of pre-colonial gold artifacts, many from Surigao and Agusan. These pieces astonish visitors with their beauty and craftsmanship. But beyond their aesthetic value, they challenge us to reconsider Philippine history. For too long, Philippine history textbooks began with Magellan's arrival, as if nothing of significance happened before colonization. The gold of Surigao proves otherwise. It demonstrates that our ancestors weren't waiting to be civilized. They had already built complex societies, mastered sophisticated technologies, and participated in international trade. This history matters for contemporary Filipinos, especially in Mindanao, where indigenous communities continue to fight for recognition and rights. The archaeological record validates indigenous knowledge, traditions, and claims to ancestral lands. It proves continuity and sophistication that colonial narratives denied. Conclusion. The Surigao coast stands as a golden testament to pre-colonial Filipino achievement, a reminder that our history is deeper, richer, and more complex than simple narratives suggest. Those ancient goldsmiths, panning for gold in mountain streams and hammering it into works of art, weren't just making jewelry. They were building civilizations, connecting cultures, and creating a legacy that still gleams in museum cases today. The ancient Gold Coast of Mindanao isn't just history, it's heritage, identity, and proof that the Filipino story didn't begin with colonization. It had already been written in gold for centuries before the first European ship appeared on the horizon.